What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. With 2016 coming to a close and 2017 starting up, I wanted to go over my 5 top independent comic books of 2016. These are all books that I have read, so basically books that I have not read, have not been taken part in consideration, so I would appreciate if you guys hit me up in the comments down below if there's something that I didn't read that you really enjoyed and that you would recommend from me. But any book that I recommend here is going to also have a link down in the description, so that way if it sounds interesting to you, you're more than welcome to pick it up, and it's something that I definitely recommend that you do. To start things off, we're going to go with number 5, and that is Renato Jones versus the 1%. So this is a kind of super visceral, super violent, really stylized version of the world today. I mean, it's just like Andrews does basically everything on his own. You know, he does the art, he does the story, and he wrote this thing out, and it is just this gonzo, violent take on America currently. It's basically saying that poverty is the cause of the 1%. It's saying that these people are vicious, they've got all kinds of different fetishes, they're the worst of the worst, they're the ultimate in criminals, and they essentially buy their way out of trouble. And what we have Renato Jones, who is a member of the 1%, who's basically like the Batman analog that is going to take them all out. And he is not hesitant at all about taking lives. There's nudity, there's graphic violence, and ultimately this freelancer here, Renato Jones, is just this kind of force of nature that comes in and just storms the place. It's super fun, and it's super twisted, and I really enjoyed the whole presentation. It's one of those things where I was just like, man, it's just a whole bunch of id kind of stuff, you know, it's just like really kind of core ideology. Not necessarily like what you believe in, but like if you were to take off all your filters and you had a violent outburst, this is what this comic book would be. Highly recommend that you check it out if it sounds interesting. The next book I'd want to talk about is The Fix by Nick Spencer and Steve Lieber, and this really takes the story of 2 detectives and their experiences in Hollywood. They are not necessarily the most straight and narrow individuals, and often take them, bribe money, they partner up with criminals, they plant drugs, and all kinds of ridiculous stuff. It even gets to the point where one of the detectives shoots his partner so that way he can go get another partner, and, disability, it's just ridiculous what's going on. And I just love the commentary that Nick Spencer puts into this, and how everything kind of looks and really puts a slant on Hollywood and LA and that whole scheme. It's a really entertaining read, even though it is a bit more adult in its themes, so it's highly recommended, but if you're not quite of age, it might not necessarily be for you. Coming in at number 3, though, is a bit more of a heady book that really kind of lends itself to a really lore-based system, and that is Black Monday Murders. And Black Monday Murders takes the occult and matches it up with our current financial system, and basically says that people in power do so by black magic, or essentially making pacts with the devil, almost essentially. So, there's vampirism, there's this whole situation, and I mean, Jonathan Hickman and Tom Cocker, they do a phenomenal job with this. Hickman is a master when it comes to in-depth storytelling. He basically starts out and spins this yarn and kind of weaves it very intricately. It's phenomenal what kind of detail he puts in there, and you never know what might come up later. There's always other things to be on the lookout. He develops his own languages and things like that. It's ridiculous how much he can pack into these books, and they're all oversized, so it's a really interesting concept. Coming in at number 2, we have 7 to Eternity, and 7 to Eternity by Rick Remender is a favorite of mine, simply because I love the world that he's developing. I love the characters that are in it. They're all really seriously flawed individuals, and as things move forward with 7 to Eternity, you get a great sense of depth that comes out of these things. Jerome Opena does a fantastic job with the art. The colorful scheme really lends itself to this fantastical nature, and you never get anything more than that except in the first few pages, where you've got this concept of having a mental connection with a snake that you tell to straighten out as it kind of goes to pierce this wild oh god, it's amazing. 7 to Eternity is one of my favorite books, and it could have easily taken the top spot. However, but before we get to number 1, we're going to be talking about honorable mentions, and one of the ones that I'm going to have to talk about is Kill or Be Killed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. And Kill or Be Killed is just a fantastic series. However, I haven't quite put the time necessary into Kill or Be Killed, but I know that it's probably going to be on some people's top 5s. Also, I want to talk about Descender, and there is a story arc called Singularities, and Singularities is a series of one-shots that tie into the individual characters of Descender, and that is probably one of the best story arcs that's gone on in that entire series. Descender is it's basically this gem in the rough. It's just one of those things where if you got a real even inkling into some sort of like spacey kind of out there drama, it is just fantastic. And the ties to the individual characters that Jeff Lemire puts together are great. The soft watercolor nature of Dustin Nguyen's art, it just really has a crazy contrast versus the cold space and the violence that really goes on in these comic books. I can't really recommend those two enough, but they're not quite there to take the top 5. Seven to Eternity is one of my favorite books, and it could have easily taken the top spot. However, that is going to have to go to Black Hammer. So Black Hammer from Jeff Lemire and Dean Ormston, that is just such a good book. The individual characterizations, the emotional connections, the whole concept that's behind it. When we have these massive DC crises, right? What happens to these heroes that are kind of left behind in that situation? They go in, they put their all, and they kind of end up lost in the fray. What really happens to them in that time? And this is just kind of peeling back the layers of that situation, giving them great characterizations. And the art is strange. Ormston's art really lends itself to this concept, and it makes everything feel foreign, like they're in outer space. And it's just a really cool concept that's wrapped up in a really complimentary package. I just can't believe the depth and the amount of connection that you can feel to the characters inside Black Hammer readily. It's just one of those things where if you're even remotely interested in the concept, it's something that you latch on to almost immediately. So those are my 5 favorite independent books of 2016, but I want to know what you guys were reading too, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. Maybe you can give me some good recommendations. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.